Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with potatoes Romanoff. That's right, I'm not always certain how authentic the recipes are that I post, but this time I am really certain, since I was shown how to make this incredible potato side dish by its creator, Chef John Schenk. Although now that I'm remembering, he did credit his mom back in Buffalo with showing him how to make it. But the point is, I learned this directly from him in his steakhouse in Las Vegas about 10 years ago. And it really was one of the most memorable parts of the trip, in that it's one of the few things I can remember. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started by buying some very large russet baking potatoes. Okay, except no substitutes. It has to be large russet potatoes for this. And what we want to do is make sure we scrub those very clean since we are going to use the skins for this recipe. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and wrap these in foil. And by the way, you only need 3 large potatoes for this recipe, but I'm going to do 4 since I had 4. And I'll just save 1 to fry with some eggs. So don't let that throw you off. We only need 3. And then what we'll do once wrapped is go ahead and give them the old poka with some kind of small pointy knife. And that will allow steam from the inside of the potato to escape while these bake. And that's it. Once foiled and poked, we can go ahead and pop those into the center of a 400-degree oven for approximately an hour and a quarter, or until very tender. And of course, since we never want to guess in the kitchen, we're going to go ahead and test those with a knife. And if that doesn't slide right in, they're not done. Put them back in for a while. But these were perfect. And then what we'll do as soon as these are cool enough to handle is go ahead and unwrap them. At which point we want to let these cool all the way down to room temp. Because one of the secrets to this recipe is wrapping these and popping them in the fridge overnight before we use them. And I guess it doesn't have to be overnight, but they really do need to be completely cold when we grate them. All right, so this is me the next day pulling them out. And what we'll do is go ahead and grate these with the skins on a cheese grater. And if you're not big on potato skins and you're a little bit worried about this, don't be. Okay, they're almost imperceivable in the final dish. Although having said that, when you get down to the end of a potato, you'll probably be left with a large piece of skin, which you can discard. So I went ahead and grated 3 potatoes as shown, at which point we can go ahead and start adding the rest of the ingredients, including some type of onion, and in my case, shallot, which in case you're not familiar, sort of looks like a small red onion. And it's often described as a cross between an onion and garlic, but I don't actually love that description. I mean, kinda sorta, but it really is a unique oniony flavor. And by the way, no matter which kind of onion we use, we really do want to dice it very finely with a very sharp knife. Okay, because in the classic recipe, this does not get cooked before we mix it in. And by the way, in the blog post, I'm going to talk about all your other options for this, as well as I will also talk about the amounts. Since I used a really large amount, and probably more than the average person will want. But anyway, bottom line, we're going to need some minced onion. And then once that's prepped, we'll go ahead and grab a couple forks, with which we're going to mix everything together. And we will go ahead and toss our freshly minced shallots in, along with what looks like a ridiculous amount of salt. But it's not, because that's large grain kosher salt, so it always looks like more than it is. And you really do need like a teaspoon of kosher salt per large baked potato for something like this. And then besides the salt, we're also going to want to season this with some pepper, but not freshly ground black pepper. This time we're going to use freshly ground white pepper, which I don't use a lot of, but that's what Chef John recommended. And then we will also do a little touch of cayenne, even though that is not in the original recipe. And then what we'll do before we add the rest of our ingredients is give this a quick mix using the old fork toss and clean method, which means we dig down underneath with our forks and then toss everything up. And then after doing that a time or two, we clean off our forks and repeat. And the reason we're using this method is one of the secrets to this dish is not to mash these potatoes. So we really do want to be gentle. And then what we'll do once that's been mixed is stop and add our cheese, which should be a nice sharp white cheddar. And then once that's in, we will mix it until just combined using the exact same fork toss and clean method. And sure, you probably could use your fingertips for this, but I really do think the forks will cause less smashing and mashing. Oh, and can you use a different cheese if you want? Sure. Should you? No. Please use a white cheddar. And for heaven's sake, grate it yourself. Okay, there are pre-grated cheddars, and there are grate cheddars, but there are no great pre-grated cheddars. But anyway, we'll go ahead and very carefully mix in our cheese, at which point we can add the last ingredient. Lots and lots of sour cream. And please, not the low-fat one. We're going to need that fat. And then once we have that dolloped here and there, we'll go ahead and fork that in. Again, being as gentle as we possibly can. Okay, above and beyond the flavor, One of the things that makes this dish so incredible is that if done properly, we end up with the texture of a perfectly baked potato that has just been freshly mixed with some sour cream. So we will very carefully toss in that sour cream until just barely combined. At which point we will stop and very carefully transfer this into some kind of buttered baking dish. And as we're transferring this in, it's critical not to compress the potatoes any more than is necessary to get them into this dish. Okay, so we want to pile these up as high as we possibly can. And then just kind of use the tip of our fork to settle everything down a bit. And by the way, this will kind of sink and settle down as it cooks, so it really literally can't be too high. And then to finish this off, I'm going to do a little dusting of cayenne over the top. And by the way, if you wanted to toss a little extra cheese on the top, go ahead. But there's so much already mixed in, I really don't think you need to, and I actually think it looks better if you don't. But suit yourself. And that's it. We are now ready to transfer that into the center of a 425-degree oven for about 30 minutes or so, or until it's piping hot all the way through and the top is browned, and it looks just like a magnificent steakhouse side dish. And that's it. We really don't have anything left to do except start eating. And I really would have trouble picking my favorite all-time potato side dish, but believe me, this would be way up near the top of the list. And even though it kind of looks like a mashed potato casserole, the texture is not even close. This really is so much lighter and fluffier, and is meant to mimic the texture of a freshly baked potato that you've just mixed with sour cream. And this really is almost identical to that experience, and maybe even more so, which is all thanks to cooking and chilling and grating those potatoes first. And also, of course, being very gentle as we mix this and making sure we're not compressing it. And of course, if you wanted to dress this up with maybe a little bit of bacon or some chopped herbs, go ahead. All right, this is the classic version, but that's up to you. I mean, you are, after all, the David Hasselhoff of your potatoes Romanoff. And speaking of large hunks of meat, don't just eat this out of the dish. Use it as an excuse to buy a couple nice big strip steaks, which you will then sear to a beautiful medium rare and then serve with the pan drippings. And that, my friends, is really how you want to enjoy these incredibly delicious potatoes. Even if you're a vegetarian, maybe do a cheat day and try this. It really is tremendous. I mean, if there's a better protein and starch pairing than this, I really want to try that. But anyway, that's it. My 100% authentic version of potatoes Romanoff. So sincere thanks to Chef John, and of course his mom, for showing me how to do this classic. And I have no idea why it took me 10 years to do a video for it. Hopefully you do not wait that long. Which is why I'll finish up by saying, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.